Well, appearance is deceptive. I wasn't alive in the 1950s. A decade my parents refer to always as our time. My parents are, I suppose, 10 years older than the oldest of you, which might mean that they experienced the beginning of it a little bit more. But I did know Ruth Ellis's son, which I feel is one step towards that. Absolutely gripped by the knee-deep women, though. I feel that's a decade one missed out of at much cost. I don't know whether they came into Richard's joke, but if they didn't, we'll hear about them later. I also found myself, to my horror, 10-shilling note was the tip that old ladies gave you in my childhood. And as I started writing it down, I realised I'd almost forgotten how to write 10 shillings, which I suppose means that I am still, because you can't write 10 shillings. You can write sentences, it's a bit of a fogey. I'm also, my last bit about your book, which I'm longing to buy for my parents when I go home, is the idea of supper at 5:18. So if you had to hang on to your husband, what the hell were they going to do with them in between 5:25 and the end of the evening? It doesn't seem like there's any time. I like the variegated talk form. I can't think how you could segue from one to the other. But Emma and her stepfather once went to a talk in Oxford about brain damage, and it was an unbelievably chilling and serious, grim lecture dealing with the trauma and appalling nature of brain damage and what advances have been made over the previous 30 or 40 years. And when the speaker finished, the room was really totally poleaxed in silence. And as they were getting up, two ladies stood up next to Emma and Rick and said, "What do you think of that?" She said, "It was okay." And she said, "What's next week?" "Oh, it'll be more fun, it's hedgehogs." So I think I am filling the hedgehog slot probably at the moment. I'm going to talk about the brain. I'm going to talk about architecture for the brain, because my books that are downstairs or somewhere some of you very sweetly kindly bought, are about architecture, which is one of the things I'm interested in. I'm a very, very passionate good weather lover. I've got that seasonal dyspeptic disorder thing very, very badly. And I love it when it's sunny. What I really love it is where it's rainy, where someone else is, and sunny where I am. I hate getting on the aeroplane when it's sunny. I just feel I'm doing the wrong thing. I like to get on the pouring rain. I like to go somewhere where it's going to be sunny with the sort of central heating of Schadenfreude behind you. And I think that that's a feeling that architects, on the whole, have. Now, architects put a lot of work. Hands up, architects, for a minute. Oh, okay. Thank heavens is all I can say. Even the sort of mildest surveyor better keep his paws down. Architects now are very devoted architects to the photographs of their buildings. And when they photograph them, they are hunting for a strange kind of imagined twilight moment with deep blue shadows. It's a kind of strange Atkinson Grimshaw look, with every light with its forbidden tungsten bulb on behind every window. And the sky is dark behind it, and it's unbelievably warm and balmy and lovely, and there's some little wraith-like figure with bare feet walking through violet grass behind. Because all architects photograph their buildings exactly like that. And if you do photograph buildings like that, then the simplest kind of aluminium industrial unit looks like a sort of Tuscan village. I mean, you can do anything you like if you write as carefully as that. And it doesn't really recognise what you might call the conditions on the ground. If the conditions, as it were, Billingham Civic Centre on a March afternoon, with a sort of lake of a brown, greasy puddle, where a little sort of polystyrene tray that was once manned by chips is now making its final voyage down towards the smoking area of the employment exchange at the foot of the hill. That's obviously what English building really looks like, and the architects are inclined to miss that. Now, there is, of course, architecture that looks good when it's wet. Old buildings look good when it's wet, and I think what I'm talking about is good buildings for wet weather. Obviously, the great place for wet buildings is Venice. And even on the gloomiest, greyest of days, those buildings that glitter so beautifully in the sun glitter equally marvellously when they're rainy. They're absolutely wonderful. Even at night, sepia Venice, when it's got these little weak light bulbs and the pavements shining underneath them, are very, very marvellous. And that's what one longs for, because you don't always want everything to be sunny. You do want architecture to weep in. The late king, that's quite a 50s expression, the late king, isn't it? The late king, is alleged to have been padding down his corridors in his bedroom slippers, monogrammed, I hope, and found the cadaverous face of John Piper standing by his easel as he was drawing those famous two pictures, wartime pictures, of Windsor Castle, and said it was painting, it was terrible weather, whatever he said. And of course, to the king, it was terrible weather. For Piper, those deep shadows and that great lowering gloom absolutely was the whole world of the new romantic world that Piper and Betjeman and everybody else were part of. And the king, who I imagine was more a man of the sunny stubble than the crisp, frosty November morning, was not a man, I think, who was a great romantic. I don't think the late king was a modernist. If he had been a modernist, I think he would have gone for a sunnier kingdom. Modernism is the architecture of good climes. When you go to Greece and you see these wonderful villages and you've got windmill, and a little monastery and these little boxes stacked one on top of another, they are the play of light on these lovely squares and these lovely facets, these wonderful angles. If you turn the lights off, they're very dull. I made a massive mistake and went to... Almost everywhere is now a World Heritage Site. Quite possible that we're in one now. I have no idea. You may all be going to your own World Heritage Sites. I don't know. Certainly the station you go through will be a World Heritage Site. I suppose other parts of the world have them too. They may be entirely English. I don't know. Anyway, they're called World Heritage Sites. One of them's outside because I went to a place called Matera in Italy, a place which I may warn you has the worst food in the whole of abroad. I went to 9 restaurants and each one was more disgusting than the last. Have any of you been to Matera? You are the only one, the rest of you don't go, trust me. Anyway, it also has these great big hillsides. We went for 3 days with deep leaden, sort of grey flannel skies lowering over us all the time, and downpours and thunderstorms. And the hillsides of these two sort of ancient bits, I've just forgotten what they're called now, are covered in the same little boxes, rather like that Fornasetti pattern called Jerusalem. And in fact, it's often used for filming Jerusalem in films, Matera, because it's so very ancient. But when the lights turn off, the whole thing disappears, and all those three-dimensional buildings turn into one. Even the Shard, which is the great masterpiece of modern architecture, I'm sure you'll all agree, modestly disappears when the sun goes out. It just goes into the clouds and dematerializes, which is very sensible for it, and it waits until the sun comes out. And when the sun comes out, its childlike little curves and things suddenly come to life. In as much as they can do. And what they do, of course, is to dwarf all the unbelievable glories of imperial Britain, which turn out to be a sort of tiny little jewel box on the floor underneath them. Because England is, or London, should I say, is being taken over by an extraordinary blitz of huge and charmless and grim and gloomy buildings, drawn on the screens of the maps of architects who holiday in Venice and Bruges and Paris, but who strangely have a plan to make England look like Singapore, something which is happening very, very quickly at the moment. So shed a tear, ladies and gentlemen, for the appalling destruction of the City of London, and remember that what we need in England is good buildings for wet weather.